Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the program. And as we know, Indonesia is set to hold our next regional elections on November the 27th, 2024.
Correcto mundo. Yes, the election will decide the next governors and vice governors, regions and vice regions, as well as mayors and vice mayors. For this year's election, about 52% of registered voters are under the age of 40, making young voters take the center stage once again. However, lack of knowledge on each candidate's information or track record and ideas is still one of the main issues we face here.
Indeed, and as a response, a youth community created a platform called Bijak Demokrasi that focuses on political education to educate voters about each candidate's policy and finalize their votes.
So to know more about Bijak Demokrasi, joining us in the studio, Think Policy CEO and Bijak Demokrasi Secretariat Co-Head, Andhyta Firselly Utami, also known nicely as Utami. Good morning, Afu.
There, friend of the program. Glad to have you back.
Exactly. So this is previously Bijak Memilih, right? And now it has transformed itself into Bijak Demokrasi.
Correct.
Tell us about Bijak Demokrasi.
Yes, so it started from the thinking that in today's day and age, you make everything convenient, right? You make ordering food convenient, getting into a public transport and so on. But what about participating in democracy?
Yes.
It remains complicated, hard to understand. So the question that we begin with was how do you make it convenient and accessible for many? Especially because democracy actually goes beyond the election. I mean, election is the hallmark of democracy, but it's just the beginning of participating, ensuring the politicians that you elected actually perform and or gives you the kind of policy that is good and pro people, right? So people always come and ask, so what can I do in a democracy, right? As a common citizen, I don't have that much power. I'm not part of a political party. What can I do? And we turn it into a 4-step kind of levels of participation.
Okay.
Let me help you with that.
Let's meet these 4 steps.
I think if you can scroll up, this is exactly it. So we think that voting wisely is the first step. So not wasting your vote and just voting for whomever, but actually doing your research. That's like number one way that you can participate wisely in a democracy.
So this is in Bijak Pilkada.
Bijak Pilkada, or at the national level, the Bijak Memilih that we had previously.
Yes.
But then after the politician got elected, you need to monitor them. So Bijak Memantau is kind of our second product, where you can monitor what kind of policy each ministry is making, for example, or each parliament commission is working on, what kind of legislation, and so on and so forth. So that would allow you to kind of communicate and speak up better because you understand the policy, exactly what's happening, right? So you can care better. But then it shouldn't stop there. The third step is to get organized and to join a community. Because individually, the way to participate in democracy is to join a movement, to join a community, to speak up and engage your local leaders, for example, or national leaders. And we want to facilitate all the local communities that already exist, that have been advocating for important issues for the marginalized communities, but we're kind of fragmented. So we need to create like a common space where all these communities that care about democracy essentially and want to promote good policy can come together. But then finally, you need to enter the system as well at the end, if you can. You want to enter a political party, you want to maybe be part of the government. So that's why we built the school for it. So this is where you get into the details of how public policy is actually being made and so on and so forth. But this is kind of like entering the system is kind of like the next level, the 4th level of kind of participating in democracy. So
this is like the introduction, like if you want to understand policy, this is almost like the introductory lessons of what you need to, where you start, right?
Correct. And this, there will be obviously speakers and instructors, like you being one of them, probably.
Yep, exactly. So if you can,
Aha, that's you.
We cannot afford other models. But yeah, so if you scroll down, Marissa, we have 2 levels of, how do you say, like scroll a little bit more. Yeah, so 2 levels of sophistication for the beginners and for professionals. So for beginners, it's like basic understanding policy problems, for example, or decision science in policy making or negotiation. But if you click on the professional side, this is where you get into a deeper sectoral knowledge. On climate policy, technology or digital economy policy, negotiation, climate crisis negotiation process, so something that's really for someone who's already in the system to better, create public policy.
Wow.
It is for the professional. So we have for the beginners, the classes are free because we think that that's basic kind of citizenship participation. But for the kind of deeper knowledge, technical knowledge, we want to make it affordable because otherwise you need to.
Say, it's quite affordable.
Otherwise you need to go take a course, like a full-blown course. We make it, a simpler version, a 1-hour version with a relatively affordable price.
Does this mean that you have certification after?
Yes.
Way!
Wow.
Awesome.
But we're still working on making sure that certification is aligned with what can be accepted, for example, for PNS and so on. So that's still in the works.
Yes.
So, Marissa, would you mind heading back to, let's go back to
Bijak
the top there, the homepage?
How do we do that? How do we do that?
It's the other website, the tab.
There you go.
This tab?
Yes.
Oh,
There you go.
ew.
Let's go back to Bijak Demokrasi and go to Bijak Pilkada, if you don't mind.
Yes.
Obviously, this was birthed from Bijak Memilih.
Yeah.
Was this always an idea that you had? Obviously, we know the regional elections are coming up. And how did you shift into Bijak Pilkada? And what did you learn from Bijak Memilih that you applied here for Bijak Pilkada?
Definitely. So one most surprising fact that we found was, so initially we thought, probably only 5,000 people will use the website because it's very nerdy. And maybe 5 of those
It's
people
nerdy
will be
cool.
my family members and friends. But turns out more than 1.4 million users or voters under 40 actually use Bijak Memilih website. So we thought that the demand was actually there. So people did want good information that's accessible. And when we break it down into cities and kabupaten or districts, we cover almost 300 of them, so 300 cities and districts. And if we break it down, 2 to 7% of the voters in the area actually use Bijak Memilih.
Wow.
So it's a significant number when it comes to, if you are talking about swing voters,
Sure.
It's quite a significant number. I mean, it's a start. And so we were thinking, what if we double down and go for the local elections and see what those 2 to 7% of voters in those cities can drive the outcome of the election, right? Can that create more demand for, better governors, better bupati and wali kota, and better programs for their local public policy?
Yeah.
And we also think that local politics should be a lot more relatable than national one. Because at the national level, you're talking about undang-undang that's kind of like far away from you. It's more difficult for you to make sense of it. But when it comes to local public policy, it is about how your local budget is being spent. Is it being spent on public transportation? Is it being spent on creating open green spaces, basic services, dukcapil process, how you, register marriage certificate or kartu keluarga and what have you. So that's like basic services that is more relatable to you.
It affects us directly, right?
It affects us directly. So we really want to see if we can increase this 1.4 million users number to maybe double it down by the end of November by making it even more relatable and grounded at the
Right. So what are the features? I mean, are the features similar to Bijak Memilih?
Yeah, so we have not launched it.
Yes.
It is supposed to launch in July. And when we launch it, the first phase is going to be very basic about what is Pilkada, so the fundamental political education, basic information on Pilkada. What are the kind of issues you need to care about at the city level? Because, at the national level, you have all these laws and we're kind of exposed to it through news, but what about city level issues? So we want to kind of educate or make information available on that. And then why do I need to care about my bupati or wali kota? What can they actually do? And what many people don't realize is actually when it comes to forest protection, for example, the issuance of licenses actually relies a lot on bupati. So, whether or not your bupati is corrupt or clean will have a lot of impact on the kind of policies. And then, what if we imagine what an ideal city or kabupaten look like, so that you can benchmark that to the program that each candidate would have.
Right.
But then we will launch the actual platform closer to September, which is when the candidates will be announced, 22nd of September. Yes, that would be phase 2. We put question mark because we weren't sure before. That's when we will start putting the rekam jejak, the track record, achievements, and so on. And the best part about this is, because we cannot do this alone, Marisa and Paul, we will crowdsource the information.
Whoa.
We need to work with local teams because, as Jakarta, sometimes we think that Indonesia is just Jakarta, but it's not. And each region has their own unique challenges, and we really need to tap into the experts, the young people who are actually living their reality in those cities and districts.
So how can those young people contribute?
So you can click Gabung Tim Kami.
Oh, nice.
So right now we're recruiting local team members, local researchers. It is paid. This is not unpaid labor. It'll be modest, but it will be. But you can basically, we were looking for each city and district at least 2 to 3 people that can be our local researchers who understand the local issues and so on and so forth. And we'll work together. We have some priority provinces and kota kabupaten, but this is essentially, eventually will be crowdsourced for the entire Indonesia as well.
Because I was going to say, like for Bijak Memilih, it's hard enough work to do all that, but to cover all of Indonesia, that's going to take a lot more people, a lot more manpower as well.
Yeah, and these are the positions, right? Editor-in-Chief Lokal, Research Analyst Lokal, and so on and so forth. Wow, this is just so impressive. It does make me feel like, wow, it's like we have a lot of young people who cares about our democracy, because we are the 3rd biggest democracy in the world, right?
And you mentioned a lot of, we didn't mention earlier as well, we saw through the national elections that a lot of these are going to be young voters. What sort of idea do you have so far in regards to some of the issues that young voters have locally as opposed to on the national level? You mentioned a couple of them, probably public transportation would be one. What are some of the main issues that you've heard so far through the grapevine?
So at the national level, the issue that kept coming up as first top priority is jobs, basically. Jobs and economic opportunities. So young people today, somehow, and I'm surprised because we have economic growth and so on and so forth, but I think they're struggling to find jobs. And part of that is because they want good jobs. So they're not willing to settle. They're more selective.
What does it mean, good jobs, right?
Yeah. So pekerjaan layak with so basic like human or appropriate in terms of salary, the working hours, the working environment, and so on. Especially if we're talking about to urban middle class young people, right? So that's number one. But even in the more rural areas, for example, farmers are struggling, fisher people are struggling. So that's like economic opportunities are important. But at the same time, they also, the number 2 or 3 usually is environmental issues as well. So even when it comes to like getting jobs, it has to be the kind of jobs that do not further contribute to environmental destruction, for example. And environment, I think when we localize it, translates to, again, public transportation, open green spaces, green buildings, and so on and so forth. The other issue for urban middle class especially is related to corruption and freedom of speech and freedom of expression, for example. This is maybe issues that are a bit more privileged, a bit more, very urban in a way, but it's the most relatable or moving for young people because it gets them angry. So I think when it comes to Bijak Pilkada, for example, showing the track records of corruption is already like a really good start, because that would be like a determinant, or if people can know which candidates actually have a track record of corruption, for example, that can already go a long way.
Track record doesn't lie. That's definitely so.
No, track record doesn't lie.
So when we talk about this particular platform, what are your hopes for it? Because we talked a little bit prior to our discussion that I was quite new to this, and it really helped during the national elections. But I also found that a lot of people that I know are actually, I don't like using the word smart, but better informed. They like to be better informed. So they're not as easily swayed by just following what they see on social media anymore. That's what I noticed anyway this time around. What are you doing to kind of balance the kind of being able to attract those that normally get their instant information from social media and kind of attract them over to sharing them the proper information, but making your site attractive enough for them to be able to make that shift?
Yeah, so we have a magic number, Paul, which is 3.5%. This is the minimum number of critical mass of any country in a population for a significant reform to take place. So if we are talking about, politik gitu-gitu aja, we always keep having the same kind of candidates. It's like the same cycle over and over again. If you want change in terms of just like overall systematically on how public policy is being made, you need that critical mass of 3.5% of the population to actively engage, and I mean really actively. So getting information, speaking up, getting organized, and so on. So 3.5% in Indonesia translates as 10 million people.
Right.
And so when we saw that we have 1.4 million initial unique users, we just need to multiply it by 10 times to get to the 10 million people. And that's exactly what you said, like the power of social media, of punchy messages that can carry the message forward and can get it viral, but in a meaningful way. We also don't want it to be like a one-hit wonder where it gets viral just over one time, but we want people to stay and stay meaningfully participate, and that's the tricky part. So actually to get to 10 million that is meaningfully participating, you need maybe 20, 30 million people to access the website, right? Because you'll have some, attrition over time. But that's the hope. So I think just as a goal, we really want to double the number of users by end of November using Pilkada as a momentum, using the crowdsourcing, so decentralizing the movement, making myself and the Jakarta team less relevant and making the local team really like the champion and the face of the movement.
Yes, I would like to explore a little bit more on the Komunitas Bijak earlier, because through the community you can actually add more people to be part of this, and not only be part of this, but also hopefully determining the kind of policies that they want to see in their local government, right? So what's your strategy in adding more people, and how does the community work so that it becomes a hub that will just keep expanding?
So in the past 1 year, we have worked with over 80 local communities organically, which are people that adopted so we adopted this from a TEDx type of setup where TED has their kind of formula of what kind of event, and then people can turn it into a local version of like TEDx, right? So we did over 80 BMX or Bijak Memilih X local community across 36 cities, districts, and provinces, and some are even outside Indonesia because the PPI, the student organizations, were organizing it. And so we wanted to start with those. So we'll start in those 30-something cities where communities already exist. We want to, I think like empowering is such a condescending word because they're a lot more, they're resourceful. They carry the issues in their local areas, but I guess connecting them, facilitating with resources and information, and getting it connected to the national level stakeholders or players is going to be part of the strategy.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Afu.
Yes, thank you.
Best of luck with Bijak Demokrasi.
We have not launched it, so next week is when we're going to launch it on the National Awakening Day, Hari Kebangkitan Nasional.
Nice.
By the way, this is the first time you're seeing this on such a big screen.
Yes,
What do you think?
Love it.
You like it?
Oh yes, we always have to test the website on the screen before we launch it. That's why.
So guys, make sure you stay tuned to bijakdemokrasi.id, and you'll certainly see more in the coming weeks. All right, thanks once again, Afu, and we're going to take a short break here on the program, but we will return with some more headlines, this time out of the region of Southeast Asia. Stay with us.